So of course we've had a major update to CS:GO that happened just a few days ago, and I didn't make a video right away, right when I read the changelog, because I wanted to kind of see the game played a bit as well as play it a bit myself. And I've played in some different like 10-mans and pugs and stuff like that with some pretty decent players in the NA scene, semi-pro, pro players at times, and I've also commentated a couple of games for the North American pro scene since the update released as well. And so I kind of wanted to just give my initial thoughts on the update. Obviously, we're not really going to know the complete impact of it until we actually see some major tournaments played and we actually see, the top teams going head to head on a pretty consistent basis, and we kind of just see how everything goes. And I'll just kind of leave it at that. I also want to point out that in this video, I'm not just going to sit here and bash Valve like we see people easily do on social media. I will make a couple of critiques, but in general, I think that the update overall was quite good in the sense that it accomplished one very huge thing when it comes to the hitboxes and hit registration. The regard of hitboxes, not necessarily like net coding or whatever else might cause issues with how shots register and stuff like that. But it changed how hitboxes work, which is provided for way better gameplay in my opinion, and this may go down as one of the biggest updates that the game has ever seen as far as the impact that it'll have going forward. And so that's really where I'll start. I'm not going to read through every single thing that was on the changelog just because there was so many bullet points underneath the animation and gameplay section of the patch. But really, the key thing to take away is how they completely rebuilt the hitboxes, I guess more in a cone or cylinder shape rather than in the actual box shape where kind of, I guess, hitboxes gets its name from maybe. No, I'm not going to, be 100% sure on that. But it's completely changed how things work in that regard just because of how they're shaped and built differently, and it's improved the game for the better. I guess the biggest way you can see how this is illustrated is in the past, you could jump scout people and you were basically invincible because something between the server side and the client side or what have you, there was a delay. So whenever you would jump, the hitbox would kind of trail you and like what the actual person could hit. I'm not too technical on it, but the point is like people were basically invincible. And while the jumping accuracy is still there for the scout and such, which we can debate whether or not that should still be there or not, I tend to think that we shouldn't have it in the game to be jumping and accurate. It's still a big problem. You see it especially on Dust 2 when people are trying to plant the bomb or hold the site after a plant, but it's also on many other different areas as well. Still a big problem, but at least they're not invincible anymore. At least if someone jumps and tries to peek you, you can make them pay for it. Granted, it might be a more difficult shot because when they jump, maybe all you can see is their head and they can see your whole body while they're shooting at you and jump peeking. But at least now you can actually hit them, whereas before you'd be quite lucky if you pulled off a shot like that. So now if people are jump peeking cat from elevator, if you're posted up on top that box there in the corner or behind it, you can actually shoot them, and if you're accurate, you're going to hit them and they're going to probably die. Same with maybe people jump peeking upper B on Mirage. It's another key place where you would see that happen. And of course, that's just a couple of examples, right? Like that's something that really exists throughout the map pool. So that's huge, and that's just one illustration of it. I think just overall, it improved gameplay as far as hitting people properly and being more accurate with your shots. And so I'll just say first off, shout out has to go to Valve for that. Shout out has to go to the devs. Like they obviously this was a major problem. It took a long time to fix, and you can tell why, because they had to completely restructure how hitboxes were made and how they interacted with the game. So, props to Valve for this. This is a huge fix. This is definitely for the better. This is one of the biggest fixes that ever been added to the game, and it's great stuff. So we got to give credit where credit is due and be positive about that. And so, yeah, that's huge. I don't want to go too much more into it because I'm not super technical anyway. I just know that it's awesome to see that change to the game. Now, with this whole hitbox thing, was also all these new animations on how players look, how the model is positioned. They look like a little bit more hunched over with their heads kind of more down. They pull out their knife, and there's just different animations in general when people are pulling out their gun or where they're jumping around. And some of them are quite funny, but maybe that's just because we're not used to it yet, and maybe over time, like, we won't think anything of it. I don't necessarily think the animations are that bad. I mean, some of them are kind of funny and useless, I guess, and not necessary, but at the same time, they don't really take away from the game either, in the sense they don't do anything that breaks the game, in my opinion. But then again, I'm not as fluent as a professional player would be, so maybe they see a key problem. So yeah, I know there are two key problems that are related to hitboxes and the new animations and how character models work. One is a crouch spamming bug that exists now that Kerrigan put a video out for, where you can kind of like crouch spam behind the box at the back of B platform and just basically like tag people up, and they would, like, it would be almost impossible to hit you. So obviously that's a bug that just needs to be fixed. That's just a problem that needs to be taken care of. So yeah, that sucks that exists, but I'm sure that wasn't intentional, and I'm sure there will be a fix for it at some point. So while we should bring it to their attention, and I guess in that sense be kind of up in arms about it, you can't be too critical because it's obviously just something that needs to be fixed. What you can be critical about is maybe that these things should be tested better before they're rolled out to make sure we don't have problems like these. But in reality, the only way that's going to happen is if people play on it and hammer away at it and notice it and bring it to their attention. Like, they need data to know whether things are broken or not, which ultimately leads to an argument that maybe we should have some beta test servers that pro players get to play on when Valve's about to release a big update, so they can test it before it's ever even released to the public. Or maybe if you're a certain rank, or if you have a certain profile rank or reputation, or if you're a known community member, just having some type of testing phase before an update's rolled out. That way big problems like that can be spotted and taken care of almost immediately, in the sense that it'll be noticed quite quickly by anyone who has a good mind for the game, and they'll be able to bring it to Valve's attention and nip it in the butt immediately. So that's really the only thing I can say there. There's also a big issue with FPS. Like, everyone's talking about having frames per second issues right now. I've noticed a drop in my own game. Several people have noticed a drop. For me, it's not crippling. Like, I barely even notice it, but I can understand that some people who don't have the best rigs or the best setups or whatever probably feel it much more than I would with my hardware, which is, pretty up to date and works great. So that's, again, another issue where if it could have been tested first before being rolled out, that may have been noticed immediately, and it could have been taken care of properly before the update ever even got pushed out. Obviously, no matter how much testing you do, when you push out an update, there may be still some bug or some problem that people will eventually find that will need to be fixed. But this crouch spamming bug and this FPS problem are two pretty major things that could have been spotted immediately in a testing phase had you have done that before you rolled out the actual patch to the general population. So that's kind of the two things I'll note. I've also noticed some people talking about in relation to gun models and hitboxes, even though I don't think it's completely related to hitboxes as much as it's just about how people move in the game. I've had some people say that people move too fast. It's hard to shoot people around corners. I think the overall game speed needs to slow down a little bit. I've heard that criticism being put out there. I think Cadian was somebody who put it out on Twitter, if I remember correctly, that people are just moving too fast. In reality, I don't know if that needs to be fixed or not. It could be. I wouldn't be opposed to a change in movement speed if everyone seemed like that was the better thing to do. It doesn't. I haven't really seen in the limited games I've watched since the patch. I haven't noticed like a huge difference in like player performance pre and post update, I guess. But then again, there hasn't been a whole lot of play on it, and there hasn't been any major play on it like at a big tournament. So we'll just have to see over time whether or not that's something that needs to be addressed again as well. I know people always talk about movement. People always talk about reg and all that stuff. And at some point, it becomes very hard to differentiate between whether something's actually broken or whether you're actually just bad at the game. And this is not taking a shot at anybody who said anything about the movement speed being too fast. This is more in regards to hit registration. Like, oh, the registration in this game is terrible. My shots don't reg. Like, the server reg is bad. You have to understand that, first of all, aside from your play, it's not necessarily always the game. Sometimes it's maybe the server provider on the server that you're playing on, or maybe it's some type of third-party service that you're logged into while you're playing the game, like an anti-cheat client or something like that. Or it could be your personal internet connection is just trash, like your routing's terrible or something. It can be all these other factors involved besides the actual game itself and Valve's actual coding of the game. I'm not saying Valve's perfect and there isn't some issues there. There could be, but I'm just saying that there's other factors that you have to consider first before you go immediately blaming Valve. Or maybe you just literally missed. Maybe you think you hit, but you didn't. Maybe you just didn't hit the shot, and you just gotta, suck it up and just accept the fact that you missed and move on. So, and sometimes it becomes very hard to figure out whether or not it was an issue or whether or not it was just user error or whatever, right? And so I'll just kind of leave it at that when it comes to all that cool stuff. So big plus to Hitboxes. Animations are meh to me, kind of neutral, don't really matter either way. I guess it looks kind of cool in some regards, though like ladder climbing looks kind of weird. But here's the thing, if the animations look silly and stupid, as long as the hitting of shots works, then I don't really care. So from what I understand, it's easier to hit people while they're planning and defusing. It's easier to hit people while they're walking up and down ladders. Like, it actually works, whereas before it was ridiculously off. So this is a huge major change that, despite how silly it may appear aesthetically, functionality-wise, it's amazing, and it's really fixed a lot of problems with being able to hit people in certain situations. So this is all a huge plus in this update. Moving on, the whole bomb defuse thing, I guess, is an animation change as well we could discuss with the wires. I think it's kind of stupid, to be honest. I think it looks silly. I think it does have an effect on fake defuses and stuff like that for sure. And that is like a gameplay change, even despite the fact that this is actually an animation tweak. So that's definitely a huge issue to me. I don't really like it. If you're trying to modernize how it looks, how you look when you're diffusing, why couldn't you just do an animation where it actually shows the CT like clipping the wires or something like that, instead of two big electrodes, I don't even know, like tasing the bomb, like don't tase me bro, or whatever the heck is going on. And then maybe that animation is displayed no matter whether they're diffusing or not. So it looks like the CT's clipping wires on the bomb, whether or not they actually are diffusing the bomb. So if you're a terrorist and you're peeking out to see if the CT's diffusing, no matter whether or not they're doing it, it still displays the same animation. If you wanted to modernize the game and make it look more realistic, or the heck they're aiming for with this new tweak on what the bomb defusal looks like, just make it consistent across the board to where you can't detect a difference if you're playing the game. I heard I think Michael or somebody mentioned maybe you could just make it to where only viewers actually see the animation of the bomb being defused from GoTV or what have you, or from the stream, but the actual players in the server can't see it. So that's maybe a compromise where you can still have it seen as a viewer whether or not they're on the bomb, but as a player you don't. But I think it would just make more sense to make it a consistent animation. Before, where it was no animation, you're staring at the bomb, diffusing it with your fucking mind or something. But just make the animation of them clipping the wires or something, no matter what. That'd be fine. Or Michael suggested, I think it was Michael who tweeted that it's just viewer side only and not in the game. And I'll just leave the bomb defuse whole thing at that. So another big gameplay change was the fact that you can no longer see guns sticking through walls and stuff like that in many situations. I know this could happen a lot on D-Dust 2, for example. If you jump on top of Xbox and you're crouched, you're about to peek cat, but your gun's sticking through like the rail of the catwalk there. There's so many different doors and walls. Like, I know like on Cash, when people would hide in that corner in the B-bomb site, people in checkers could see your gun poke through. There's so many different situations where someone was setting up for a really cool play only for it to be completely blown apart before it ever even got started because of, some type of glitch where your gun was sticking through the wall. I think this is a positive change. I think all it did was like ruin people trying to make plays. Yeah, maybe you had to just pay some mind to not sticking your gun through the wall, but I like this change. I think it's really neat. I think it'll take away from people being able to bust plays over a broken mechanic, in my opinion. So another positive change next to the hitboxes and stuff from Valve. So really knocking it out of the park here. Up until we get to some of the other changes, right? Well, I already mentioned some other problems like FPS issues, crouch bug, things like that. But another big problem that everyone's having is with the Silent Sim 4. They reduced the price again. They apparently reduced armor penetration, but I've heard that didn't actually even take effect yet. Like, it didn't actually get put into place. So even though it's on the changelog, it actually hasn't changed yet. And I guess we'll see if they actually do patch it through to make sure it actually does reduce armor penetration or not. But they did reduce the rate of fire. It's equal to the AK-47 now, rather than the what the unsilenced M4 is, the M4A4. I think Adren made a video kind of comparing the two side by side a bit and talking about the silenced M4. They also increased the base spread, which again, Adren in his video on YouTube discussed that even though they increased the base spread because the rate of fire is slower, the actual recoil pattern is actually smaller than what it used to be because I guess like the slower rate of fire overrules the increasing to the base spread of the actual spray pattern. So with all this combined, I've seen some different takes on it. I guess I get the point that it was changed because too many people were using the silenced M4 and like no one was using the A4 or hardly anyone was using the A4. I don't know what the exact percentages were, but you could definitely tell in most pro competitions you watched that pretty much everyone was using the silenced M4 instead of the A4. And so Valve has always had this mentality of trying to make all the guns viable. That way there can be better diversity, and so everything can be used. And I don't necessarily agree with that mindset. I think at the competitive level of play, not everything has to be viable. Maybe some guns are best only used in casual play, whereas in competitive play, we really focus on these key guns. So I don't think you have to make everything viable competitively. But I can understand that these are two key guns on the CT side of the game, and trying to make sure there's a better balance there, or there's a better incentive to use either one given the situation, the type of style player you are, or whatever, and trying to find that happy balance. I guess I can kind of understand that mentality. But in the case of the CZ75, for example, they kind of forced this gun to the game and tried to find a way to make it viable. And I think now it's kind of in a happy place to where it's not ridiculously OP. It started out as being OP. It was OP for like a year before it finally got fixed. Whereas with the silenced M4, it's been nerfed heavy, but now we have to figure out how long it's going to take to buff it back up to an appropriate level, or if it needs to be. I've heard some people like Days even say the rate of fire doesn't bother him that much because the accuracy is still there. So if you're playing a long-range fight, or if you're still trying to play stealthy with the silencer or whatever, you can still hit these pretty accurate headshots, especially since the armor penetration nerf wasn't even implemented yet. I hope it doesn't get implemented, because I think that the reduced price to reduce rate of fire tweaks the gun enough to where it's still viable to do like the burst fire headshots and being super accurate, but it does hurt you in the long run when it comes to close quarters situations and things of that nature. So maybe that is a proper balance to pick which scenario you want to play in. I've even heard people like Adren and others mention that both should just be on the buy menu, so you can pick which one you want to play with depending on like what situation you're going to put yourself in that particular round. Or at least open up a rule set to where you can swap your inventory so many times per game or something like that. Like, I don't know. Just figure out some way to where you actually aren't locked out of using one gun for the entire game and you're stuck with one the entire game or something like that. I'm not really sure how you figure that out. That's certainly an option. So because the M4A1 silence isn't even complete yet, I don't think, I know we have this raw of the patch, but I'm willing to bet that it's going to be tweaked some more pretty soon. If I had to guess, I hope anyway. I know the CZ and the Tech 9, it took forever for them to really tweak it because they didn't really know what they wanted to do or whatever. Hopefully the process will be quicker this time. Because I think as it is now, it's probably okay. Some people will still use it just because it's accurate. I still don't get why we can't just have one M4 where you detach the silencer just like every other Counter-Strike, but what do I know, I guess. So personally, I don't really like the nerf to the silenced. I don't think it was. I think it's only necessary in the sense that you're trying to get other people to use the A4. I don't think the gun was like ridiculously OP or anything. So yeah, I kind of don't like it, but we'll see what tweaks they do to the silence M4 later to see if they find like a happy medium of where it sits to where both guns become pretty viable. I guess I'm a bit biased because I was already using the M4A4 for like the last 3 weeks or so, just because I like having more bullets and stuff. So yeah, I don't know. I'm kind of out of this one, and I've heard mixed reviews on how pros feel about it, though it seemed like most didn't really like it, so that still needs to be addressed. They reduced the price of the Zeus to $100. I think competitive games should just not allow the Zeus to be purchased. I don't care what happens in matchmaking and casual and stuff like that, but I don't even think it should be a purchasable in competitive play, just because I could see situations where someone's like holding a corner with the Zeus and just like with $100 investment just like takes down a player in a big way or something like that, and it just seems kind of silly. Seems like more of a troll factor than an actual viable thing. So let's leave it in casual and matchmaking if you want. Let's keep it out of competitive play. I think the competitive rule set should just not even allow this use to be purchased. Maybe it doesn't even matter. Maybe people wouldn't buy it anyway. We probably don't. We haven't seen anyone buy it anyway in any tournaments that I've watched. So it probably is already banned in competitive play anyway. So there's probably not even really much of a point to take too much of a look at the Zeus. Now, the other thing that was changed was the dual Berettas, the dualies. They increased armor penetration and increased the range on it. So I think this gun now is probably a pretty viable, like, if you are a... I mean, you probably still use a Tech 9 on T side, right? Whenever you're saving second round, if you didn't get a bomb plant the first round or whatever, you armor Tech 9 up. But if you're a CT and you lost first round and you're, like, armoring up, instead of getting a CZ or a 5.7, I guess the dually is now somewhat of an option because of the increased armor penetration. I've seen some people using it here and there. I guess it becomes a second option next to the CZ or the 5.7, whatever you have equipped, as another gun that you could use. I don't think that this like buff like made the dualies too OP. I don't see that many people using it, in fact, but I think it at least makes it slightly viable. I guess I don't really know how I feel about it because I haven't seen it used enough in competitive play to like know if it's broken or not. In my own personal play, and the few times I've seen it used, it didn't look too ridiculous. It just made it like to where people might actually use it. So again, that mentality of trying to make every gun viable, so every gun has a place, and we can see a better balance of gun usage in the stats, I guess, or whatever their goal is. That's pretty much what it did. So that's the major points of the update. Just wanted to kind of run through them and give my take on it. Hope you enjoy the vid. If you do, follow, subscribe, and check out more content later. Thanks.